Sorry, guys, I'm on the phone here. Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, absolutely. No, if Mahomes isn't playing, you're not playing. I get it. For sure. No, as I've said many times, you are the Patrick Mahomes of this show, and Nate and I can carry the weight. Yeah. No, that's fine. I will not call myself Carson Wentz of this show again. I am Chris Oladokin. I understand. No, it won't happen again. Yep. All right. Love you too. Yep, I'll tell Justin Ross that he's ready for a big game. All right. Sorry, guys. I just got off the phone with Seth Kaiser. Turns out he's not going to be here today, but the Chiefs, they can rest starters. We can rest at least our oldest, most overworked one. I mean, that's just smart load management. So it's me. It's Nate Taylor. It's Carson Wentz. It's Carson Steele. Week 18, baby. What else could you ask for?
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Yes, it's true. Seth Kaiser, doubtful, ultimately out, parentheses, old, and we will roll on as a duo here today on Only Weird Games. It's already been a weird week. It's New Year's Eve today. The Chiefs played on Christmas on Wednesday. We had our show after that, but it's all very silly. We have another weekend of NFL action under our belts. I don't know if a dang thing changed, but it's good to at least be here, Nate. Hopefully looking ahead to we're still another entire show away from a pretty even-keeled week of hopefully normal preseason-like business. I think that's what they got to handle.
Yeah. So, two things after a marvelous intro. So you're saying Seth came into your office and said, "Coach, I gotta get out of here."
Yeah.
The bronchitis. It's wild.
He put in a lot of hours of work on the timeline over the last couple of days, a couple of stories in the newsletter, and somewhere in there, maybe he took one too many Twitter beef reps, and suddenly we needed to bring him back on the podcast reps. I would have preferred that he prioritized this show over fighting with Bills and Bengals fans on social media, but I'm not gonna tell the goats how to manage their body throughout an NFL season. He needed to fight on Twitter in week 18. He got to. That's okay.
And look, if you gotta be late for a meeting, just say you're sick. Just say you're sick, man. Which he is, and everybody should wisely send prayers. It's not that bad, but he's sick.
He's sick, but it's not dire as far as I know.
No. I love that Mike. Was it Oxmall? Good God, I'm in rare form. Waiting on Seth to stop yelling at his wife and children, which he obviously does daily. Now,
I think he's more of a soft-spoken Matt Nagy type in his own household.
Yeah. Now, the
certainly not the head coach.
No, right, obviously. So the second thing is, which I just explained to you, and the incredible relief in service of us, Nick.
Thank you, Nick Springer, and for Tucker today. We are deep into the depth chart.
Yeah, we're as I explained to you and Nick, I wonder if this is happening on that one Arrowhead Drive. I don't think it is. I hope not, because they're sane people. But if you see this, ladies and gentlemen, I am wearing a new athletic hoodie.
Crispy.
That feels incredible, but also The Athletic, owned by the mothership that is the New York Times, says, "I don't care that you just took your wife and children to Pittsburgh. I don't care that you were just in Cleveland. I really don't care that you want to watch football. You want to spend time with your family. I'm sorry, it's December 31st, and those expenses have to be submitted today. Have to, I tell you, have to, preferably before the end of the workday, traditionally, 6 p.m. Central Time, or Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time. Can you tell me where you ate at 4:30 in the morning? And how much was it?
I hope you wrote off every Christmas present you gave to Hayden in Pittsburgh.
I mean, come on.
Those should all be expenses.
Yeah. Thank you, Nate Dogg. The letter A is sharp. So you guys might be seeing this from time to time as it's still cold outside. But yeah, man, I can't. Like, it's bad enough that my pregnant wife got on 2 flights because, as I've said before, God forbid, why would you want a direct flight from Kansas City to Pittsburgh or from Pittsburgh to Kansas City when the Chiefs play the freaking Steelers?
Who would want that?
So I did expense reports. We are through the year. It's great. 4:30 a.m. gotta be Denny's. Incredible. Incredible. We had to get up at I think we had to get up at 4. Our flight was at 6:30, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And we were going through we were going to Detroit. So we're going from Pittsburgh to Detroit, which I'm like, shouldn't I just keep this rental car and just go to Detroit myself? So at around 5 a.m., yes, I felt my son the breakfast of champions, that is McDonald's hash browns.
Clutch.
And I think Holly did Chick-fil-A because that was in the airport as well. And I did Sir McGriddle. It was excellent. And then of course we did the flight to Detroit. Holly did the flight back to Kansas City. And then we did the show. And I wrote about how they were excellent. I wrote how well the Chiefs did 3 games in 11 days, which pales in comparison to the contrast of me doing terribly.
They crushed their 3 games in 11 days. Yes. You limped to the finish line.
I really did. I mean, who was worse, the secondary of the Pittsburgh Steelers or me? It's a toss-up.
You had other forces at work against you outside of just the rest of the Chiefs. You deserve Week 18 being at Arrowhead. It sucks that you've got to get it back on a plane again in a handful of days.
Can I tell you the fun part, Josh, about Sunday night? Where again, I think I told you on 96.5 The Fan how Sunday was the first day that felt normal. Mm-hmm. Because hey, we got through Christmas. All right, my body is adjusted. I've slept in my own bed. Hallelujah. Let's go. Pittsburgh will lose now. Go cry in the car. Hilarious. Thank you, Todd. Food court should be in more places. Excellent choice.
Yeah, good call.
So Sunday, I told Holly, she's pregnant. She wants to go to bed at a decent time. And I said, I'm sorry. Young Wei Koo's not their kicker. We need some dude I ain't never heard of to make this field goal because NBC is just dangling this Week 18 schedule over our heads. Yep. And it's not mistletoe. I don't want to kiss you, NBC. And so, of course, he misses the field goal. Falcons Commanders goes into overtime. Who asked for this? And then they roll out the schedule. And thankfully, because it's Denver, these hands that are made for typing got to work, kids.
Really?
Because thankfully, it wasn't on Saturday. My biggest concern was they're going to somehow find a way to flex this thing into ESPN on Saturday because the Broncos do need to win this game to get into the playoffs. We should probably mention that 8 times in this episode. The Broncos need to win to get into the playoffs. The Chiefs are your 1 seed. I got on and I was like, you know what? I'm going to fly because it's Denver. I'm going to fly through our lovely partners at Southwest Airlines to Denver on game day to watch Carson Wentz and Carson Steele. And then my wife, Ollie, said, you going to take that flight back home the night after the game? Yeah. Right after? So I just want to tell you all right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Are you doing it?
I'm flying to Denver, Colorado from my beloved hometown to not watch Trent McDuffie lock somebody up.
No.
To not watch Travis Kelce route somebody up.
No, Carson Steele.
to not watch Patrick Mahomes operate within the pocket. I'm flying day of, flying out day of. Say your prayers now. I know the ball ain't dropped, but that's my resolution. This is the first time I will have ever tried this, okay? Nate, did you plan your pregnancy around the onesie like Mahomes? I wish I did not. Now, a lot of people speculated correctly that I took my wife to Wimbledon and immediately impregnated her. That did not happen. But Patrick may have went to somewhere. They may have made a decision to have a third child. Then they went to Wimbledon right after I was at Wimbledon, and now the baby's, in range. That's all I'm saying. So, all I'm trying to tell you is, guys, please pray for me tonight when I watch. Please, Anderson Cooper, please be drunk. I need you to be the most drunk man in America tonight. I need Anderson Cooper to be drunk. And I need you guys to pray that Southwest Airlines will get me to Denver in time for me to drive to watch the warm-ups to know who is the center today, boys. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea who's snapping the ball for the Chiefs on Sunday. It might be Creed Humphrey for one snap.
He will have the first snap. I believe this wholeheartedly.
And then I have no idea what's going to happen. Then I'm going to, tell you what's going to happen. You'll watch the game with great anticipation because, Carson Wentz has had all year to get prepared for this game, in theory. And then I'm going to write my little story. And I'm going to get in the rental car and drive back to Western Kansas and get on my flight. Because that's where Denver's airport is.
Western Colorado.
Yeah, Western Colorado.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were driving
Colorado,
back now, so
Western
that's even
Kansas.
worse.
It really don't matter.
Okay. Yeah.
But
It's not literally Western Kansas, but I'm with you now.
The Denver's airport ain't in Denver.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So I'm gonna try to do one and all. One of my good friends, Jordan Rodriguez, who covers the Rams for the Athletic, she will take the Red Eyes back home Sunday night after they play, right?
Yeah.
Because you can always go east to west a little bit easier. I'm trying to go flight, cover game, flight. First time in my career. You know why? Not because of this A, but because of what's in Holly's body. And thankfully the boy's healthy. Hallelujah.
Two very good comments. One from Nick, who just had said that I was hoping that with no Seth, we would avoid this topic today. That's very good. And then Lance McCormick makes the point that the overall theme of 2024 of Only Weird Games has been Nate's reproductive life. And that is a lot more true than I wanted it to be. Yeah, but I shouldn't be surprised by it.
Sure.
The A on the sweatshirt stands for A boarding. That's very good. This is my group, okay? You're gonna be checking in. You're gonna sprain a finger refreshing that app, and rightfully so. Troy says, my wife says you guys are too loud. The good news is if we're both too loud, then you're in control. Sorry. But we're a couple loud fellas.
Thank you, Kyle. Flight, cover game, flight. Ooh, indeed.
You got to keep us posted on that one. I want this to be a day in the life of a Chiefs beat reporter. Like, I want to see your Instagram stories. I want to see this on Twitter and Blue Sky. Like, I want to see what time you wake up. If it's Snapchat, that's fine. A vlog is a great idea.
Is incredible, yeah. Live tweeting. Okay, Kyle. I guess I can do that for you because, again, it's not me. Okay, my wife, as Mike Tirico is telling you, and oh, by the way, those games on Saturday do not matter if the Denver Broncos beat the Kansas City Chiefs, which are like, who made this schedule? And Holly's like, well, just see what time you can fly back home. Just 10 p.m. You can make it back by then.
Is it really 10 p.m. for an afternoon kick?
I'm basically landing. Okay, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, I rarely do this, but I will give you a general idea of my flight arrangements.
We're going to talk more backups, and Seth will be here on Thursday, so this feels like an appropriate use of talking about your flight. Yeah, if you want to just let us track your flight, I don't know.
So again, no hotel room, just a rental car and a couple seats on a plane. All right,
and the backpack on your shoulders.
Right. Holly's like, this will be great. You don't even have to pack. And I just said, Thanks, babe. Thanks. I love you. I love you too. So I will be in Denver 2 hours before kickoff, theoretically. All goes well. Thankfully, Southwest.
That already makes me sick, Nate. I have horrible airplane, just air travel, like general concern about how we're going to get places. This is going to be okay. Go ahead, you talk.
Yeah,
I'm just going to cringe over here in the back. Oh my
I'll
God.
be in the Denver metropolitan area 2 hours before kickoff. Now, you kind of want to be there 90 minutes before kickoff because that's when they do who's playing it, who's not playing, and who's warming up, and who's playing what position. Those things might be important when we have no idea who's playing in this game. And then kids. Hopefully the game doesn't go to overtime.
Oh, no kidding.
Hopefully no one gets hurt in a serious, awful manner. And then I'll get in my car. I'll collect my things in the press box, get in my car. I will drive back to Denver's airport, and if everything goes well, I will land at MCI at 1 a.m. Monday morning. Again, that's if everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, that's a tough plan A. I'm nervous for you, and also of your many illustrious qualities as a journalist and a reporter and a writer.
Thank you.
I'm not done yet. The one trait of yours that I don't believe is one of your 5 tools that you hang your hat on, I believe is the speed in which you sculpt these masterpieces. I mean, you've written plenty of post-game stories. You've got the reps. I know you know how it's going to go. But I'm afraid that if you kind of get in your mind palace and you decide to write something beautiful about how Carson Wentz is going to be a starter somewhere next year.
Yes.
I'm a little bit worried that you're gonna hit submit and then realize it's 9 o'clock and you've got a flight to catch.
Right. So look, this is the best part.
Oh,
right?
Bob says my mic is blowing out speakers. I have a real quick PSA. I have a new old mic. This is the exact same mic I've been using for 10 years, but actually the original one's over my shoulder. Here in the video, you can see there. It's gone to the rafters. So I have a new, just a Blue Yeti, but so I am fiddling with my sound. So apologies if my levels are bad today. This will hopefully not be true still on Thursday. Go ahead, Nate.
Right. So if you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, back when I was a young whippersnapper, back when I could just be talented enough to show up, right? No train of thought, no families, no responsibilities, no kids. I mean, I used to cover the National Basketball Association, and there was one time, and I think I'm going to show this picture now, because it is representative of a time in my life that I said, "Boy, they're going to think you're an idiot when you get old." So when I covered the Indiana Pacers for the Indianapolis Star, shout out to them in lovely Indianapolis, Indiana, home of obviously your NFL Combine. I think the Pacers had 5 games in a 12-day period. West Coast swing, kids. And then I told my editors, now I was married, I had a child at this point. But I still felt like I was coming out. Yeah. I still feel like I could just wake up, give him 81. That's how I felt, right?
Yeah.
So I told my editor at the time, hey, George Hill from Indianapolis, lovely Pacers player that got them to the NBA Eastern Conference Finals back when LeBron James was doing his thing in Miami. He got traded to Utah. And I should go to Utah to try to write an interview George Hill on the embarrassment of being traded from the Indiana Pacers to the Utah Jazz, who at that point were trash. But you knew it was going to be a rivalry game at some point, and so we were going to get ahead of it, right? My editor said, "You're crazy. Sign me up." So, ladies and gentlemen, I covered 6 NBA games in a span of 12 days. We're talking Portland, LA, obviously Utah. I think the trip ended with Phoenix, Dallas. I put so many miles on my body.
I can't even. I'm surprised you're not still hungover from that.
I got to it. I got to Utah. George Hill.
I love that Nick went to Big Red Coach of the Year on the rundown. Like that's really good direction by you, Nick. Thank you.
I went to hold on, let me put my phone on dark mode because some of y'all say I don't do it right. George Hill saw me and said, "I'm not talking to him."
No.
And so guess what, kids?
No.
I went to Utah to interview George Hill's teammates about George Hill.
No.
It was the most comic story.
What?
That was hilarious because he just didn't want to talk to the Indianapolis Star. Just, was just not in the right mood, not the right headspace. Even though
you didn't trade him,
right? Even though the Utah Jazz said, "No, come on down. He'll be great. He'll be great." He loves it here.
I'm really not a big personal altercation type of guy. Right. I'll usually let it roll off my back, and if it doesn't roll off my back, I'll deal with it on my own time.
Guys, this picture...
I would have needed to fight a PR person.
No, man, you just roll with it. You make that lemonade was so sweet and so tart that day. I did quote him. I think I still quoted him, by the way, by saying he wasn't going to talk. Because you can always do that, kid.
Always do that. You can always say they declined to comment.
All right.
I'm not talking to that guy.
This picture was taken in early December 2016. It is me in a giant restaurant by myself. Look at those tables behind me. Look at them. Look at those tables. Look at them. Ain't a soul in there. I asked that waitress, "Hey, come take a picture of your boy."
I need to show my friends and family what I'm doing in Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City by myself. 6 NBA games in 12 days by myself. There you go. So
24 hours to get to Denver and back. Big deal. No big deal.
We just hop back in the time machine like it's 2016 and we gonna make it work. Okay.
Nate is gonna show up on the Tuesday after with ice packs, ace bandage to it. He's gonna look like LeBron. He's gonna look like LeBron in game 74. He's like I just gotta get to the playoffs. I just gotta get to the playoffs, and I think he'll be able to.
Right. So here's the reason why Andy Reid's the coach. They have 15 wins.
Let's take a break. Nick, pull the lever.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Let's go ahead and pay off what we've been talking about for these last 20 minutes. No, we're not going to Andy Reid yet. Let's actually go all the way back up to the top because I think we have so very precious little to work with now. This probably won't take very long. Let's talk about what we know about the Broncos game right now. We touched on this a little bit on Thursday. I want the Chiefs to rest any player, by and large, who you want to see in the playoffs. I don't want to see them in Week 18. I'm open on DJ Humphries. I'm open on Steven Nelson if he gets the call up. There will be some guys that have to get a little bit of work. Most of the corners, fine one way or another. Najee Johnson, Chris Rowland-Wallace, maybe Joshua Williams. I don't know.
I think I want to see more Keith Taylor.
I do too. Yes,
Joshua Williams.
I agree. We know what Joshua Williams is. They know, and they haven't loved it the whole time. But we can even pick the guys that we do want to see a little bit more of. But it's really, really easy. And they can only call up 2 guys from the practice squad, right? Even though it's Week 18 and ought to be treated like a preseason game.
Yes, I'm so happy you made this point, Josh, because I feel like the NFL needs to understand that not every team is going to be under the same urgency or the same incentives
Right.
to play their starters like it's week 8, right? There should be a week 18 sort of exception, kind of like how baseball does, with like just bring anybody up in September. We don't care,
Yes.
if you're trying to see somebody, if you're trying to, hey, we've been developing you all year to see what you can do, then like, yeah, why not have week 18 kind of be an anomaly? It does not affect fantasy football. We all know that. We're all smart enough to not do that anymore. Because I remember back in the days when championship games had to be decided on, wait, he's not playing?
Yep.
Because they clinched?
I don't have Peyton. Who am I supposed to start? Who's
Right.
the Broncos quarterback this year?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So we don't, so it's not going to mess up the money. It's not going to mess up fantasy. It's not going to mess up really. You shouldn't be betting kids on this spread on week 18. You really shouldn't. Maybe hit some prop bets, but do not bet the. Don't do this. Don't do it to yourself. So I love that fact that, like, yes, technically they can only bring up so many guys. It's a very small amount, which is why I think, again, we don't know for sure, but that's why I think Steven Nelson has to be one of the guys you elevate to the practice squad, with the understanding that, like, he should play a football game. He's been here for almost a month, and so. I know he came out of retirement, but again, it'll be something interesting to see, to write about, to analyze. I also think for the offensive line specific, he's on the active roster, and they got to win the game. I know how much my words will carry right now, but I want to see Kingsley Suamataia at guard.
Interesting. Yeah.
I want to see it.
I think that's plausible.
Because Ethan Driscoll should be the right tackle with DJ Humphries as the left tackle, and Kingsley Suamataia should get some snaps somewhere.
You've only got so much shuffling that you can do. No, Nick, you don't actually have to ban that Keiser fella. There's somebody talking nonsense in the chat. Let's just make sure he doesn't comment again. But if you only have a couple of call-ups, Chris Oladokin's got to be one of them, and I think Keontae Ingram's got to be one of them, because I don't need to see running back 1, 2, or 3. Like, it's just Carson Steele, and then Samaje Perine has to play a game if Carson Steele gets hurt. Maybe, I don't know.
I guess, yeah, right.
But,
wow.
But Deion Bush and Swayze Bozeman have gotten called up in games that matter. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Steven Nelson. He has not played a football game in a very long time. It makes sense to get him out there. Justin Ross is on the practice squad, fellas. Maybe we're not going to get Tyquan Thornton, but Justin Ross is there to catch passes from Carson Wentz.
Just call everybody up, man.
They've got 2 tight ends there. What tight ends on the active roster are playing on Sunday? Because it's not Travis Kelce. I don't need to see Noah Gray prove anything. So right. it's just Hendershot who's back. Mm-hmm. They've got 2 more on the practice squad, but so I don't know. Maybe there'll be a little bit of shuffling, but they're not going to terminate active roster contracts of guys that they like on the 53. So that's a little bit frustrating. But you know what it does mean? It means they have to play Joshua Uche and they have to play Marlon Tuipulotu again. So there's a little something for the real sickos.
I mean, hey, and by the way, Bo Nix gonna be out there, guys. Like, we cannot stress this enough. Like, Bo Nix will be on the field. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims. Like, it'll be so intriguing to see how the Broncos really handle this. Because of course the Chiefs shouldn't play anybody of importance. But every agent, every marketing rep, every family member is going to be in Nico Remigio's head saying,
yes,
if you pop off against the Denver Broncos when they had to win, we are golden for 2025. Hey, Josh Uche, I know Steve Spagnuolo's got a reputation. I can talk around that at the combine, but if you sack Bo Nix, I got some new film.
Yep.
To sprinkle out there.
Yep.
Sprinkle it out there. So it's fascinating that, like, It is very much the what's the movie, The Expendables versus the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
and Carson Wentz is like, I have the name in my head. I will probably reference him in The Athletic in the story. But guys, a team started Gardner Minshew week 1.
Yep.
I mean, what are we doing?
Yep.
They're not 32 of these dudes, okay? And so all Carson Wentz got to do is pass it to Nico Remigio about 12 times, and he's going to have a job next season, or he'll be in position to compete for a job in training camp, right? Hey, if there's some speculation that the Mora family doesn't like a certain complexion at their most leadership position, let me introduce
This is your chance.
Let me introduce you to Carson Wentz.
Hey, and Carson Steele, for that matter.
Right.
We know how they feel
I'm
about
just
running backs.
saying.
Maybe there's a different reason they didn't pay Saquon.
If Shedeur Sanders doesn't make you, if he makes you nervous, I don't know why. Here's Carson Wentz.
I think this is. You
sorry.
should be Carson Wentz's agent. You should be both Carson's agent.
I
Actually, I should be. You can work for me, but I'll be their agent. Just for the Giants. Just for the Giants negotiations.
Can I tell you one of the best things that made me laugh on Sunday while we watched the Red Zone? Because I don't think I sent this to you.
Sad Red Zone though. Sad day.
It was sad Red Zone, but it was still great that
Still Red Zone.
Somebody, what's the general manager's name in New York? Oh, Joe Shane. Joe Sheen, yeah. somebody did a screenshot of the photo of him. It said, I mean, he's not going to run for like 2,000 yards.
Somebody said like the side by side as that was happening. Saquon was running for 2,000 yards while Drew Lock was ripping the number 1 overall pick away from the New York Giants.
Yes.
Truly tremendous.
But you know what? We're comfortable with Drew Lock. We are comfortable with the Drew Lock ripping the 1 seed from out of our hand, or the number 1 draft pick from our hands. We're comfortable, okay? You know, they had Tyrod Taylor out there slinging it for the New York Jets against a 40-0 lead against the Bills, and I said, I mean, Tyrod can play for like 6 teams. Come on, guys. It's not that hard.
He'd be the best quarterback on several teams, including the New York Jets, I believe. So, what we didn't get almost anything from Andy yesterday. We'll hear from him tomorrow. We'll see if we get anything else. With the side note, Creed's getting the start. Maybe a few guys will get a rep or 2 or whatever to keep streaks going and all that. But aside from all of that, and aside from the super obvious guys who aren't going to play, is there anybody who you think you kind of would like to see, or that you have any sort of mixed feelings about, or guys who are on that bubble? Because, again, like Noah Gray for me is the perfect example. You got 53 guys here. You can call up 2 more, and you're going to have some issues. But Noah Gray doesn't need to show anything to anybody in Week 18. But if he gets hurt in that game, the Chiefs' offense changes for the playoffs. Peyton Hendershot is suddenly your number 2 tight end if Noah Gray gets hurt. So I think it's a pretty big deal to make sure that Noah Gray is not hurt. That he really matters here. But if you're not calling up 1 or 2 tight ends from the practice squad, the only active tight end not named Travis Kelce or Noah Gray is Peyton Hendershot. So I really think there are like 25 guys I would rather rest than watch play in this game. You are now doing that math and realizing, okay, well, so how much depth is there? And there's not a lot, but I would really lean into very heavy usage days for a lot of guys you want to see film from. All the offensive line, all the defensive backfield, all of the trenches. Like, I'm happy for this to be the preseason game / bowl game hybrid that it kind of feels like. That's great for Felix, for Malik Herring even, for guys that want to show some growth. But I don't know how the Chiefs are going to arrive there exactly, because they do have some weird little roster wrinkles right now that makes things a little more complicated.
Right. Another person I would name along those lines is Jaden Hicks.
Yep.
Who is apparently a very important piece to the secondary right now. But you're a rookie, so go on out there and get them snaps, young man.
Right.
Now your corners are Najee Johnson and Keith Taylor and not Trent McDuffie, so see what you can do. But it's I remember last year how difficult it was for Drew Tranquil. Like, they were back in Los Angeles. He had obviously played for the Chargers. How much do I play? Do I sit? Like, this feels awkward. Can I get in a rhythm? Like, this isn't fun.
Yeah, right.
As a professional athlete, this isn't fun when I know the reason I came here is to play the games that start next week. If you remember last year, one thing too that I remember rewatching that game is Wanya Morris has a concussion in that game, and so he's not available for the wild card round against the Miami Dolphins. So all of a sudden, I love Nate Dogg Wanya at tight end,
or Jaden Hicks at tight end.
So it's just funny that, like, you can make all these plans, and the Chiefs were like, okay, like, Jawan Taylor's not going to play, Donovan Smith's not going to play. Oh man, Wanya has to go into the concussion protocol. You want to get out there, Joe Tooney? Like, you just start. There's only so much you can do. So, a couple years ago, we saw Colin Saunders play will linebacker.
Yeah,
just incredible. So I want to know what that particularly, or middle linebacker. Yes, to Nate Dogg's point. Colin Saunders, that's the general in the middle of the defense against Justin.
Give him the green dot.
It was so funny. Yeah, so we'll find that quirk. I don't know exactly what position that'll be or what player that'll be, but yes, to your point, we're gonna find that quirk, and you're just gonna be like, please stay healthy. Like, make business decisions if you must. We all understand. If you're those guys that have a very specific role on either side of the ball, and you're going to get 20 some odd snaps in a playoff game.
It's going to be bizarre, but we covered it a little bit earlier. I like that Nick is just rotating through the rundown as if he's hoping that we'll land on it by random at some point. It's a good bit, Nick. It's bizarre because it does provide you a better evaluation, like, canvas than preseason games, because it can be hard to evaluate your threes versus somebody else's threes. This is your backups against the Denver Broncos trying to make the playoffs. So there is something to be gleaned from that. I also, as I touched on a little bit on last week's show, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday on The Fan, and I've just yapped about this for like an hour ultimately. But I think the rest for the guys that need the rest for guys who have played 14, 15, 16 NFL games already this season, and a lot in a short period of time, and a lot after an early bye, nothing but good comes out of the rest for me. The downside is that maybe your first drive feels like you're a little bit out of rhythm. This is a football team that has played a season of postseason action over the last several years. They have gone to and won the last 2 Super Bowls with different end-of-season ramp-up periods. They'll be fine. Andy Reid can set this up without them getting mentally rusty. And my closing argument on it, and there's a lot of them, I guess. I've closed this on several different arguments, maybe. But the outside of Andy Reid has this team where they need to be, and mentally they'll be where they need to be. We've seen this offense and this team as a whole look rusty. It was after the Bills loss. It was a bunch of 2-point wins against crummy football teams.
Right.
That team was exhausted. They were carrying the burden. I think this shows a pretty good education on how that went. But that's when they needed a break. They're not going to have such a long break that they come back and they would have lost a divisional round playoff game to the Carolina Panthers. We saw that football team.
Yeah.
This is all very, very good. Do you have we can move on to talking about Andy Reid a little more than next, but do you have any hesitation whatsoever about what the Chiefs' plans are here, or is it rest everyone who could physically rest?
Yes. My understanding is you're going to rest everyone you physically can. You might do some things, like I said before, as to who are the starters.
Yeah.
And then you shuffle those guys off because, Trey Smith has played every game but one. or he started every game with one, I believe. So like he'll get the start, Creed will get the start, then they'll shuffle off. You could do something similar with like, Justin Reid if he wants, and then he could sort of slide off, and put the earpiece on, put the cap, and then get to being the assistant coach. I do get the sense that because the Broncos are a divisional opponent and you've seen them already, and there's a slim, potential. I mean, two things will have to coincide, right? The Broncos would have to win on Sunday, then they'd have to go and beat, we presume to be Buffalo,
right,
before they would obviously face you again. We about to get some of the most vanilla nonsense we done seen in quite a while, because there's that element of they already know us from a divisional standpoint, but like there is a slim chance they could see us in the postseason. So like, why would we do anything that isn't like, it's cover 2, Bo Nix? It's cover 2. That's what it is. There's no safeties are rolling.
No rotations here.
No, there's no inverts. Nope, that corner is staying right in the flat. Okay, it's cover 2.
If we could show you our play art, we would.
Yeah. Hey, guess what? 2-man.
Yep.
I know this is shocking to you. It's called cover 2-man. So I don't know if we'll see much in terms of scheme that'll keep things creative or interesting. But I think one thing that Andy will tell the guys that do play is, you're in the National Football League. You're a professional athlete. You've earned the opportunity to play this game. You've worked your entire life to get all these snaps. And there's no better, to your point, Josh, there's no better litmus test, no better film that you could get moving forward against a team that's actively trying to win, trying to win to get into the postseason. So I love the idea that there could be some trick plays, but I just think those are being locked and put in a safe for the games that will actually matter. In terms of the rust thing too, I wanted to mention, it'd be one thing if you were rusty, right? And these guys hadn't been in back-to-back Super Bowls for the most part. Right. And also, didn't we just see the Houston Texans?
Yep.
Didn't we just see the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yep.
I guess there's another small chance that we might see the Baltimore Ravens, which would be like less ideal if it's to work out that way for the next 2 weeks. But you should be familiar with that team, whoever they are, because you've already played them. Whether that's the Chargers as well. And it's the playoffs. You shouldn't have a lack of focus, a lack of attention to detail, even if you haven't technically played a real football game in over 3 weeks.
We've talked about the impact of having a coach at the helm of all of that can be a good leader through somewhat familiar territory. Seth, this was really a Seth topic, and then he pretended to get sick, and so we can talk about it a little bit here now, but he wrote about it in the Chief of the North newsletter. He ended last episode on it some, but again, he wanted to talk about it more so bad that we'll go to him right now. Seth, your thoughts? Nope, he's not there. So where are you in the Coach of the Year conversation, and Andy Reid getting a little bit of conversation around it, but it feels like he's getting as high as second place with Kevin O'Connell being the likely shoe-in. What do you make of that?
We need the Lions to win on Sunday.
Yeah.
If you really care about this, and I do think Seth really cares, and I know there's a lot of people in the league or
not enough to be here, but
I know a lot of people care about the fact that, like, has Andy Reid had a more compelling argument ever before in his career? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But have y'all seen what this man's doing with Sam Darnold? I had I think it was Chase Daniel, right? Chase Daniel, my colleague at The Athletic. Shout out to Scoop City. I've gotten to the point now in the NFL year, Josh, where I just tell my son, come watch Chase break down Packers Vikings and what Sam Darnold's doing. Remember, this is the second time they've played them, so it's a divisional opponent, and I I watched that breakdown and I just said, yeah, he probably coach of the year. Like, I mean, it helps that you have Justin Jefferson to alleviate some of the coverage, alleviate some of the, just to help your quarterback be confident. Everything this man made was not to Justin Jefferson was also incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, my God. So I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that it's probably going to be Kevin O'Connell as your coach of the year, considering that Sam Darnold was not really supposed to be their starting quarterback. And I mean that in the sense that, hey, maybe you start for 5-6 games,
sure,
hand the reins over to JJ McCarthy. It's unfortunate that JJ McCarthy got hurt, and they're one win away from the 1 seed in a murderous row of a division, right? Chicago at one point in time was a competent football team. Mm-hmm. They are not now. For Andy Reid, he has no better argument than this season. They are the 2-time defending champions. No 2-time defending champion has ever won this many games or been this consistent over the course of a 3-year stretch. So you could say he should get bonus points for that, right? He took Kareem Hunt back.
Yep.
And fed that man 1,000 carries. And made it work. It's not his fault that Rashee Rice got hurt because of the quarterback. It's not his fault that, Hollywood Brown had one of the more freak injuries we've seen since the last guy who had such a freak injury, who also played for the Chiefs, being Tyreek Hill. Man, it's not his fault that, like, their most serviceable left tackle is their left guard. When he's had to make moves or to fit his offense around his players or galvanize his players or get his players to refocus, Andy Reid's done a masterful job. And I know this will hate Seth, but before I let you give your arguments, Josh, the biggest reason why Andy Reid should be coach of the year is because he actively refused to show the Buffalo Bills anything.
I was thinking about the idea that this is Andy Reid's best argument for coach of the year, at least since being in Kansas City. But yes. I did have the thought of like, well, he did show up and turn the worst football team in football into a pretty good football team early on, and that entire era was going Bruce Arians, Ron Rivera, Bruce Arians, Ron Rivera. Yes, those two highly decorated coaches
yes.
Just exchanged Coach of the Year awards in back-to-back for 4 seasons. I didn't know that until just now. That had not dawned on me.
Right.
And I thought, well, it is so often about exceeding expectations, and that's ultimately kind of what gets rewarded here. I thought, well, depending on who you're looking at and who you're giving the credit to, Sam Darnold's not getting MVP buzz. Kevin O'Connell's getting Coach of the Year buzz.
Yep.
I thought, well, in 2018, the Chiefs started a brand new quarterback who broke records in Andy Reid's system. Who won Coach of the Year that season?
I know who.
He's the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs right now.
Yep.
Matt Nagy won Coach of the Year for a far less impressive season with a higher drafted quarterback, but who cares about that? Andy Reid's been good for too long. Thought, well, after that they went on and won a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh got it after a 14-2 season, understandable. Then you have the COVID year after that. The Chiefs get back and fall short. Kevin Stefanski wins that one. And then in 2021, again, the absolute shame of the Chiefs dynasty. That year they didn't make the Super Bowl. Mike Vrabel wins it. He no longer has that job. And then in 2022, Dynasty's back on track. Brian Daboll wins it with a 9-7-1 record, barely above 500. And then last year, Kevin Stefanski won it again, which I just fully forgot about. What an absolute incredible grift that was. But
mostly off the back of who?
Because Deshaun Watson is so miserable that we are going to give you credit as a head coach for overcoming that piece of,
And Joe Flacco played football like it was just YOLO.
So
you only live once, kids.
And so you only get Coach of the Year once. Actually, you get it twice because of how impressive you've been there. The thing about it to me, and so like obviously it is a regular season award, and so the coach who wins the Super Bowl very rarely, in fact, is the coach of the year. I'm guessing it's happened maybe single digit times as I'm kind of glancing over it all right now. The thing about it that kind of does bother me a smidge now, Kevin O'Connell's great. I'm not here to besmirch him at all. The thing that kind of bothers me is that you can look at the Patrick Mahomes era and what ultimately becomes the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty, and the head coach of the year winners across these years where the Chiefs have already won 3 Super Bowls, and they have a chance to be the first ever three-peating team who would win their 4th in 6 years. Since Patrick Mahomes took over, coaches of the year here were Matt Nagy, John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski, Mike Vrabel, Brian Daboll, Kevin Stefanski.
Which, by the way, I think are all very good coaches.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Who have nothing to show for in terms of postseason success this entire era.
Yep.
And so I would like to think that the voting public might take this moment to realize that if there was a time to roll postseason success into a regular season award, maybe acknowledge that Andy Reid was the best coach in football in 2021 and 2022 as well, and that he did give you, last year was not an impressive regular season for the Chiefs, but he did give you the best regular season in Chiefs franchise history.
Yes.
One game away from perfection, presuming if they wanted to go undefeated, they'd beat the Broncos, whatever. I'm kind of glad we're not doing that. Right. But a one-loss football team who locks up the 1 seed with an extra week to spare.
This is why he's coach of the year, because he said, why would I show the Bills a legitimate threat? Anything, because that also prevents me from having to hear about undefeated nonsense for week after week after week, and like we can still get the 1 seed, and like have Charles Omenihu come back next week,
and they still lock it up with time to spare.
Mm-hmm.
If there was ever a time for Coach of the Year voters to glance around and maybe look at their notes and go, "Yikes! Andy Reid has won the majority of Super Bowls over this last 5-year span." And they have the best record in football this year, and they might three-peat. Maybe he should be generally discussed as the best coach in football one of these years over this arc. That's the thing that's silly, is that no one in their right mind would argue that Andy Reid has not been the best head coach in football at any single point over the last 20 years. No one would make that case. No one whose opinion you should care about would argue against Andy Reid's been the best coach in football over the last 5 years. But he never gets the hardware because people get bored of watching Andy Reid, I guess. That to me is the earnest argument that I would present to voters. To say Kevin O'Connell overachieved with who he had. Andy Reid overachieved with who he had.
Yes.
And this dynasty is firmly built on his foundation. This is the time.
The last thing, I don't know if Seth particularly made quite this point in his case for Andy Reid. And again, he'll be back on Thursday, and I would love to basically hear what he has to say about this. The coach and the quarterback are tied to one another. So winning the coach of the year means I believe that coach got the quarterback to peak.
Right.
And this is what we're seeing now with Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. The reason Andy Reid should win coach of the year is Patrick Mahomes is playing better football now than he did in 2023, than he did in 2021. And you could argue he's playing better football now, given the circumstances, better than 2020, when that team was absolutely unstoppable when healthy. The quarterback does not have the gaudy stats, but he's actually playing better. And he's doing it with more teammates than ever before. You might read something about this in a couple weeks on a website that employs me. So as much as it is about records, as about how you maybe overachieved your win total, your projected win total for that year, how much it is about the quarterback, maximizing his potential under your tutelage, under your knowledge. Patrick Mahomes, I think in the larger scheme, Josh, you think people remember the 2022 season?
Probably not as clearly as they think.
You may never get that version again.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to say. It may be even harder to hear. You may never get the 2022 version of Patrick Mahomes ever again, while also having Netflix get in perfectly clear sounds, "I'm here."
Yep.
I mean, sometimes I go back and I just rewatch some of the highlights. And again, you could do it all on Netflix, which I guess is why they had a game on Christmas. Anyway.
Good question.
Man, that 2022 Mahomes was, as I said to you on 96.5 The Fan, he had one incompletion after halftime of the Super Bowl playing with a sprained ankle. You're never seeing that guy again, ever. And he doesn't have the same stats he has because he won the MVP that year, ladies and gentlemen, for obvious reasons. But you may not get that version of 2022, and yet still they're 15-1 because the coach has got the quarterback to actually play better in more disadvantageous situations, circumstances, schedule, yada, yada, yada.
He has fewer Coach of the Year awards than Kevin Stefanski. All right, so let's go ahead and get out of here under an hour. We can today. It's just the two of us, and I think we may make Only Weird Games history. So we will be back on Thursday per usual. Hopefully Seth is feeling better by then or is done throwing his whittle tantrum. No, he says he's sick. I'm not a doctor, but he says he's ill.
Says.
Sources say, but my sources said. We'll be back on Thursday, kicking off 2025. We'll look a little more ahead to what we're going to get from the Chiefs in this game. Nate, one thing you may have already been planning on asking on Coordinator Day, but I meant to ask you about this yesterday, actually. I'm curious if there's anything different in the week of, like, is Matt Nagy going to call plays against the Broncos? Is Joe Colin doing some more defensive coordinator things? Or is this just like, hey, we're going to everybody take an easy path here. We're going to keep our usual roles and just get in and out. Because I think at some point, a couple years ago, or at least it was the Mahomes debut that Andy took back the headset to call plays for Mahomes in Denver.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm curious if there's any little wrinkle there. I think did Bieniemy get a week off, basically?
Sometimes. There were some years when Andy Reid was trying to, get who to care.
Yep.
It might have been the Colin Saunders Mike linebacker game where Andy Reid said, no, Bieniemy called all the plays today. So if you guys, we still scored, right? So I mean, somebody hired this man as unplug my cord. Yeah, I mean, I think Carson Wentz will get to call some plays on his own. I mean,
love that. Fantastic.
That'll be the fun thing. It'll go back to kind of a bygone era where, like, hey man, you're the quarterback. You see what's going on out there. How many times you ran routes with Jay Watt?
Right.
All right, hey, I think you should call a play for Justin Watson. It should probably be a corner route. Which kids, if you watch the 2022 highlight mixtape of Patrick Mahomes, guess who's running the hell out of them corner routes?
Justin Watson's all over that mixtape, man. All over.
Same thing last year. I was like, you know what? Let me go back and look at last year's film. Outside of that one jump ball in the middle of the field in Minnesota, every single one of them was him in the back of the end zone or the corner of the field, kids. God, it has to be amazing to be a professional athlete who's so good that it's just like, so how long did you play in the league? Wow, you got to play with Tom Brady? And you got to play with Patrick Mahomes? Man, that must have been sweet. Yeah, man, can you, you got any, stats? Any highlights? Do I?
More highlights than stats, but definitely, some of both.
Yeah. Hey, there was this time in Christmas where I ran a route that I always ran, and yet I was wide open.
So we can look forward to that.
Yeah, it's like, do they watch film? Well, it's a lot more complicated than that. I mean, there was Travis Kelce on the field, and D Hop was with us for a time or two. I had Juju back when Juju's knees didn't explode. And I had and I mean, that Mahomes guy. I mean, what can you say? But hey,
he's gonna have a really long podcasting career if he wants it. He can do that forever.
I feel like my highlights were me catching absolute from man up on God throws near the sideline, and I caught them all. That's
all right. Now,
grandchildren. I caught every single one of them, all of them corner routes. I caught them all.
We're over an hour, so this game is officially of record now. We had that's okay. This is, again, it's a real Only Weird Games now, even though there's only 2/3 of us here to do it. So we'll be back on Thursday. Nate, get us out of here. I gotta go set up some decorations. I don't really. Renee's been doing that already.
Yeah.
I gotta go prepare.
Drink responsibly, have fun, don't smoke too much weed. It's okay. It'll be there tomorrow. I promise you, all right? Like be responable. Josh, that goes for you as well.
Sorry, my camera cut out. Nate, I'm losing you here, actually.
The booze and the weed will be there tomorrow. It's okay. Have fun.
The booze will.
Call it Uber. Hit up a Yelp review. I don't know. Have fun. Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.